brace yourselves, this one's gonna be big. We're gonna pick out the MMO games that you should keep an eye out for during 2015 and 2016. And yeah, while we're probably leaving a few behind because we're still unsure about them, there's plenty to look at on this list. Instead of our usual top 10s, what we're doing here is listing our most anticipated free-to-play games by genre, and in no specific order. If it's here, guys, then we want it. We also want to note that while most of them are confirmed free-to-play, a few are still undisclosed at the time, but they're likely to be free-to-play too. And finally, a bunch of them still don't have an official announcement for the West, so please keep that in mind. Let's all take a deep breath and begin with the best upcoming free MMO games for 2015 and 2016.
FreeMMOstation.com.
Let's begin with the big one, the game that got the entire planet learning Korean, Black Desert. It's possibly the most anticipated free MMORPG of the past couple years. Pearl Abyss's debut title takes the action combat to C9 and pushes it a little bit further, making it spectacular, making it rewarding. It's a high-quality MMO offering one of the deepest character customization systems I've pretty much ever seen. Impressive characters, 6 at the time and more to come, and so much stuff to see and do in a beautiful medieval European open world that's going to keep you busy for months on end. So the Lost Ark announcement was something of a shock. It was. Out of nowhere, we were introduced to the most pretty much ambitious isometric hack and slash MMORPG that we've ever seen. We like to call it the Diablo MMORPG that we ever wanted, just for the sake of it, of course. But while we always approach these announcements with a little bit of a grain of salt, further info and trailers proved that this wasn't a mistake, and that the game reeks of potential. With a team of over 150 people working on it, 18 classes planned, a tripod system to customize your combos, and plenty to do besides combat, Lost Ark has quickly risen to the top of the most anticipated MMO games list. Even combat looks really impressive and extremely varied according to the class you pick. This was love at first sight, and it's bound to last even after the official launch. So, Period Chronicles is Korea's response to EverQuest's Next, we might say. But instead of going with the usual fantasy look, developer ThingSoft chose an anime aesthetic. That's breathtaking, honestly. We've talked a lot about the potential of this game, which allows you to shape the terrain, create houses, entire towns, and mechanisms aplenty. You can even create your own games, such as a full-functioning giant Tetris machine. It's as sandbox of a game as they come, but this isn't about just building and watching. There's an intricate combat system that all Pokemon fans will definitely approve of, with creatures to be found and collected, the Kirana, and then used in what is shaping up to be a fast-paced and weighty combat system. Period Chronicles is probably one of the most ambitious MMOs of late, and we demand a global release. EverQuest Next is a completely unexpected reboot for one of the most popular series of MMOs ever. It's not just the ambitious sandbox approach or the somewhat cartoonish look of things. Sure, it's not exactly Crash Bandicoot, but the art style is very different from the previous episodes, I think you can all agree. We have to be honest though, we like it, and we think it can work very well with the building aspect of the game. So, this is going to be EverQuest meets Minecraft with a few more highlights, such as destructibility, a Norath that is constantly changing, as well as choices that have some influence in your character's destiny. Landmark is a tool that is already sort of out there for those who want to shape the reality of EverQuest Next, but we still have one gripe with all of this. Splitting EverQuest into two different yet interconnected games maybe, just maybe, wasn't the best choice. But then again, we don't know, it's just us. Tree of Savior is shaping up to be a game that Ragnarok Online 2 should have been. The cute anime visuals look like they were caught in the middle of a time conundrum. They look as retro as can be, but at the same time, they're just perfect for today, and we wouldn't change them a bit. With 80 classes, some of them quite hard to get, and over 200 bosses, there's a lot to do and kill in this old school MMORPG. And you can jump! Yeah, it's a bit silly to talk about this, but how many times have you been able to jump in an MMO? Really? Yeah, it's definitely going to come in handy in those intricate and mechanical boss fights. So NCSoft is taking quite a while with Lineage Eternal Twilight Resistance, but the 2014 resurfacing remind us why we want this game to actually launch globally. And this is expected to happen in 2016, but 2017 sounds a bit more likely. Lineage Eternal is an open-world MMORPG that includes a randomized dungeon system, which will probably be a lot of fun for those looking for ever-changing challenges, and the skill activation system using mouse gestures will at least make for a nice change of pace. The dynamic event quest similar to Guild Wars 2 and the potential of hundreds of players and areas sealed the deal for us. So Bless Online, or Bless Embers in the Storm, is a beautiful Korean MMORPG, but it won't make you change your mind about the gameplay approach of most Eastern studios. It has some ridiculously good character design and over-sexualized too. The visual detail can be jaw-dropping at times, but in the end you'll have to be in it for the grind. But hey, that could be said about 99% of the MMOs out there. Luckily, combat can be very satisfying, with the control being different according to the class. And some use tab targets, others go for a Terra action combat style of gameplay. Either way, we're excited to see how it plays out. Now, Echo of Soul, or EOS Online, is incredibly popular in Korea and will finally launch during the 2015 year in the US this year. Just as it happens with Bless, this is not the game for you if you're expecting something out of the ordinary. Instead, Echo of Soul is simply put, I guess, enjoyable, highly polished MMO that is usually compared to Terra. There's no dedicated healer class, it includes a soul collecting system, and it should keep us entertained for quite a while. Let's just pretend for a while that Sony Online Entertainment, Daybreak Game Company, isn't completely trying to get in the DayZ bandwagon. Now, we can continue. Hoping that H1Z1 fulfills all the potential that fans of sandbox zombie survival MMOs are expecting of it. Although it's still early stages of the game, what we played allowed us to imagine just where it could go, and it could go places. The freedom that this sort of game provides will let players create their own stories, hopefully in the same rich way that DayZ is doing. But we're also expecting something new, something different to justify its existence. We expect this one to be in early development for another year or two, quite frankly, but still nonetheless hyped. So how do you approach the development of a sequel to a 2D game released in 2003? Apparently by drastically changing the way it looks. MapleStory 2 looks like My Sims, remember that one? Yeah, except cuter and with a heck more possibilities. It's all very chibi, colorful, and probably stupid fun for all ages. We'll probably enjoy the building aspect a lot. The silly mini-games will definitely become a fan favorite, and we can't forget the chibi Diablo hack and slash gameplay with those cute bosses that we're going to be able to fight against. It's a game full of potential, and we're just hoping that Nexon won't place all the cool stuff behind the paywall. Please, Nexon. You can begin your Nexon hating in 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, it's great to have Otherland back, after it was prematurely cancelled in 2012. It was probably too ambitious and led to the developer closing its doors, but now with a new developer and a renewed focus, Otherland is smoothly going places. Virtual places, that is, though. This MMORPG is based on the books by Tad Williams and mixes medieval fantasy, sci-fi, cyberpunk virtual worlds, really an amalgamation of different themes, in a way that very few MMOs have attempted to do at all. The idea of beginning the adventure as a blank slate of an avatar, later defining the abilities, is also a clever gimmick. But the thing that should be highlighted is the eDNA function, something that allows you to collect pieces of code and then create your own worlds from that. So, at the very least, Otherland has a setting all to its own. So, you want to become a god? Maybe? Well, that's good for you. Well, there's a game approaching where you can do just that. Skyforge is an ambitious MMORPG coming from an unexpected duo, the Outlaws team, makers of, Outlaws Online, and Obsidian Entertainment, masters of storytelling, and a few buggy releases, some might add. There's definitely a lot of potential in this game. Just as much as there's no dedicated healer class, the hybrid combat looks fun, some of the locations give us a Star Wars kind of vibe, and the ability to, become a god. That's definitely unique. Gathering up a group of loyal followers and smiting opponents is definitely something that we might want to consider experiencing. For some, Albion Online will finally replace RuneScape, while for others, this is going to be plenty of beautiful Ultima Online memories. Aptly titled developer Sandbox Interactive is doing a great job with this game, taking risks and boldly going where few other studios have gone before. First of all, this is a cross-platform MMO, so you can continue your adventure on iOS or Android devices, with every player joining in the same master server. There are no class restrictions in Albion Online, so you are what you wear. There's also a player-driven economy, and while we know how risky this can be, hopefully it will serve its purpose. Albion Online could be a huge game. Sky Saga is one more attempt to make the Minecraft formula somewhere else. Probably somewhere more player-friendly, but still offering some great tools for world creation. From what we've seen in the alpha, this game is actually going in the right direction. It's pretty, moves smoothly, and even combat can be a little bit somewhat enjoyable. Although Minecraft-like games will continue to spring from every single rock, Sky Saga and Creativerse are two games that are bound to be the most successful. We just want Gloria Victis to be successful. I mean, that's really it. There's a big lack of true medieval MMOs, even if it's actually low fantasy. And this is a game that is clearly being made with passion, with so many mechanics in place and planned that it just sounds like the MMORPG version of Chivalry Medieval Warfare. Sure, combat is bound to be more tactical and realistic, but that is precisely something that we want to see. This is shaping up to be a niche MMORPG, one of difficult access, but that's just the way it should be. Oh, the feels! The memories of Star Wars Galaxies. How was a great game that was prematurely shut down. I know, we know. The repopulation is trying to mix a said game with Ultima Online, and that is far from an easy task. Science fiction sandbox MMOs are few and far between, especially as ambitious as this one. So you have to keep an eye out for it. Focusing on player choice, for example, combat or peaceful means, this game will give you the tools, the skills, the housing, the dynamic content, and let you approach the seamless game world the way you see fit. This will be one rough around the edges MMO, with average graphics, we'll admit, but the complexity and the Star Wars Galaxy comparisons are real. Epic Games is working on Fortnite, but also Unreal Tournament, the return of the classic multiplayer shooter series which has gone on for many years, but apparently not forgotten. The approach that the studio is taking for development is really nothing but praiseworthy, opening it up to the community, asking for feedback, and providing the tools for modders to create content for the game. This Unreal Engine 4 powered game looks, well, unreal. Judging by the looks of the Outpost 23 map and the gameplay, it's shaping up to be faithful to the legacy. As far as competitive FPSs go, Unreal Tournament is surely going to be a name to remember during the next years. When it was first announced, Armored Warfare came as a total surprise. I mean, who could expect storytelling expert Obsidian Entertainment would be developing a tank warfare game? But now the dust has settled and everything is metaphorically in ruins. We were very curious about this CryEngine-powered game. It looks great. Actually, should have some nice destructibility to the maps, and customization is expected to be really deep. How much of a rival is this going to be to the blockbuster world of tanks? We'll have to find out. We will eat our hats if Ghost in the Shell Online actually gets released in the West, significantly close to the original Korean launch, or in fact, if it just gets a Western release at all. But anyways, this is a shooter that is capable of being fairly good, mixing elements from Ghost Recon Online and Blacklight Retribution, with the style of the manga. While such an IP definitely deserved a much more accomplished game, such as a full-fledged MMORPG, we can live with the shooting and hacking of Ghost in the Shell Online for the time being. A lot of players really wanted Brink to succeed, but sadly it didn't quite work out. Splash Damage is taking another shot, pun intended, at the shooter genre with Dirty Bomb, a game that was horribly renamed Extraction for some good 6 months or so before reverting to its original name. While Dirty Bomb won't be the pinnacle of originality, it really does everything right. It's a nice mix of Brink and Wolfenstein enemy territory, a fast-paced, skill-based team shooter that seems to be perfectly balanced and enjoyable. Dirty Bomb is likely to be one of the big free-to-play shooters of 2015. Overwatch is Blizzard's answer to Team Fortress 2, and yeah, Valve's game is getting a lot of answers, or so it seems. The last thing we were expecting was for the makers of World of Warcraft and Diablo to create a multiplayer online FPS. Overwatch has some maps born from the ashes of the ill-fated MMORPG Project Titan, and we have to admit, it's looking quite frantic and exciting, with some cool sci-fi heroes and team-based gameplay. Blizzard isn't sure at the time if the game will use a free-to-play model, and some news concerning the registered trademark may force the studio to even change the name. We suggest maybe Overseer? Yeah, you're welcome. Boss Games is keeping the Stalker heritage alive with Severium, a free-to-play shooter that looks exactly like the cult franchise. While this is shaping up to be a solid multiplayer FPS, it's the free-play mode, or the PvE, that is getting us more excited. With only one life and a hostile world ahead, players will explore the map in search of valuable items, and the most dangerous locations only open to those with access to the best gear and who follow the story quest chains. You have neither allies nor enemies in free play mode. It's all up to you, but with the karma meter recording your actions between game sessions, your fame will precede you. Stalkers are bound to love this game mode. Now, somewhat surprisingly, Lionhead is taking Fable Legends into the free-to-play territory. And on the other hand, considering the massive decline in the popularity of the last two games, Fable The Journey and Fable Heroes, this move is probably seen as a means to revive the series that really isn't in great shape. Once again, the approach has nothing to do with the original game. Fable Legends is a 4 vs 1 action game with a MOBA twist, but the developers promise that it's going to be entirely free with no areas behind paywalls or time limits. Planned for Windows 10, PC, and Xbox One, and supporting cross-platform play, Fable Legends is a looker, but we hope that it's a little bit more than that. Fun, challenging, and fair. If you were pleasantly surprised by the action game Sleeping Dogs, then you're probably going to be aware of this spin-off called Triad Wars. The studio is taking the franchise into the free-to-play, kind of MMO territory, so it's not like they're not taking any risks here. Honestly, we have to commend them for not milking the original game with expansions and a true by-the-numbers sequel. In Triad Wars, your goal is to become a criminal kingpin in a triad underworld of Hong Kong. The game will offer a nice mix of open-world action, RPG, and strategy, allowing you to pick several different routes to the top, including extortion, money laundering, smuggling goods. But in practice, there will be a lot of running, punching, driving, riding motorcycles, shooting enemies, and pretty much Grand Theft Auto. This is an asynchronous game, which means that you'll be competing against a smaller set of players at any one time. So don't expect hundreds of players in your game, but it is multiplayer. Before we begin talking about Gigantic, we want to give a virtual art design award to developer Motiga. In fact, have another one because you truly deserve it. In a world where every MOBA looks the same, Gigantic looks like a cartoon with beautiful characters that could be rejects from a fairy tale. It's not just the usual 5 vs 5 kind of game, it's in third person, just as Smite, and there are gigantic boss guardians that are the ultimate goal of the matches. These AI guardians are also just visually stunning, ranging from snake thingies to winged bull creatures of some sort, and really we can't wait to see what else the studio has in store for us. We've read somewhere that Dungeon Defenders 2 is bigger, better, more refined take on the original concept, and we're forced to agree. This is tower defense done right, with role-playing elements that only add to the fun gameplay. The 4-player co-op is a blast, and there's tons of items and levels, even at this stage, and it's early access done right. This game's already in a very stable and playable condition, and the devs really seem to care about it and listen to the community. It's a good thing that they scrapped the initial idea of going into a MOBA direction, since there's really already too much out there. I'm sure you guys could agree. Battlecry is Bethesda's answer to Team Fortress 2, and it needs to be a damn good one considering the success of Valve's shooter. Battlecry has its own weapons though, including creative director Viktor Antonov, who you might know from the lavish landscapes of Half-Life 2 and Dishonored, and the art style of Battlecry is definitely on page with that. As for the rest, it's a bloody team-based combat game in which up to 32 players will have to understand verticality to surprise their enemies. We're thinking of it as Nosgoth maybe meets TF2. Fortnite has been in development for so long that it has to be truly awesome, really, to justify such a long wait. It was announced in 2011 by Epic Games, and with a release date set for 2015, this Minecraft meets Gears of War Horde mode has to meet the high expectations from wary players all over the world. It's all very bright, though, sometimes a tad bit too much, with all the flashy colors and effects kind of popping everywhere, hurting your eyeballs, but it's definitely unique and potentially playable and nerve-wracking, especially when all the husks are invading your base. Another series to make the jump to free-to-play is Orcs Must Die Unchained. It's going to be a genre-bending MOBA meets tower defense that doesn't take itself really too seriously, and it seems to be doing the 5v5 thing right. There are hints of Smite in there, of course, but the traps definitely make for a different experience from your regular MOBA. It's a fun game with more depth than it may look like initially, so it's bound to be a great addition to the franchise. Two's company, three's a crowd? We have to begin with this one because it's clear that Blizzard wanted to join Riot Games and Valve with its own MOBA. But while Heroes of the Storm main selling point can be really compelling, so far the gameplay is very much that of a light MOBA. My first MOBA, if you will. Sure, it's hard to resist playing with the characters from the series such as Diablo, Warcraft, or StarCraft, to name just the important ones, but the game still needs some time to truly grow and become a destination of choice. That being said, it still could be one of the big MOBAs of 2015, so we're definitely gonna have to keep an eye out on this one and see how it progresses. We can confidently say that racing MMO games are extremely unusual. Sure, there's The Crew from Ubisoft, but that one isn't free to play and apparently not really any good. But it's great to see the genre experts Slightly Mad Studios are working on World of Speed. While a different team is developing the highly ambitious Project Cars, but as far as we're concerned, it's World of Speed that matters here, guys. A game that the developers like to advertise as free to complete and also as a AAA game. The focus is on team play and the circuits are based on real-life tracks. After the somewhat disappointing Auto Club Revolution, let's hope that World of Speed is the racing MMO that we need. World of Warships is the third game in the wargaming series and one that is sparking a lot of interest from players all over the world. A tactical game at heart, World of Warships was announced in 2011 and should enter beta testing during this year. The different types of ships will require different strategies from the battle groups, and while many have cried and begged for them, there will be no submarines in this game. Maybe in a distant future some expansion brings them, but you're not going to be torpedoing the enemy ships from underwater. The Total War Arena series is one of the most memorable names in the strategy genre, but the announcement of Total War Arena was somewhat unexpected at the time. Even more unexpected was the reveal that Total War Arena will add MOBA elements to the familiar real-time strategy gameplay. We're still confident that this won't sully the good name of the franchise, although some players will say that Rome 2 already did that, but we're crossing our fingers for the gameplay to be similar, at least a little bit, to the main games. Petroglyph deserves a few hit games after the mess of End of Nations and the failed Kickstarter of Victory. The studio's trying its luck again with Victory Command, a free-to-play RTS that is looking really good. We know just how sketchy the words free-to-play RTS sound, but we want to believe that this is a game that will get it right. It looks like a more colorful Command & Conquer, something that the studio knows really well, although it's more of a battle arena without any kind of building elements. Blade and Soul. You're like an old pal, just traveling the world, having a lot of fun, but we want you back home so we can party with you like you promised us years ago. Anyway, Blade and Soul, it's kind of a vaporware thing right now, as far as the Western versions are concerned at least. But there's a glimpse of hope with the NSoft job posting last October. Sure, it's not a very good sign that a few years after the original announcement, the studio is looking for staff to work on the game's development and promotion. But hey, who knows? Maybe 2015 will be the year after all? Well, probably not. Phantasy Star Online 2 is another game that was officially announced and suddenly disappeared off of the face of the earth, at least the western side, that is. While you could play it with an English patch, it's not the same thing as having the real deal. Sega hasn't said much about it. But when the Polaris private server project turned up, they were quick to stress that the game is delayed. Sure, we hadn't noticed it yet. Yeah, we don't know what to think about Kingdom Under Fire 2 anymore. It's not that it's not good, it is, and that is in fact one of our major issues with it. But the official release is still a mystery, something that is kind of odd for a game that was announced in 2008. Yeah. And it looked like it was finally back on track. While several Asian countries already have the game, we're still left in the dark. Even more knowing that there's a PlayStation 4 version in development. Let's just hope someone decides to launch it in the West. Please. So many players are dying to get their hands on Soul Worker, and yet it looks like this anime action RPG has slipped back into obscurity once again. It's been nearly a year now since the second trailer, yeah. The planned 2014 beta didn't happen at all, and developer Lion Games is still keeping really hush-hush on the current development. For a change, it's not a case of region delay though, but one of just pure unadulterated development delay. But really, it's not that much better. No. While it was created in Japan, the Monster Hunter series obviously has a worldwide appeal, and no episode should be exclusive to a particular region. Well, thank you then, Capcom, for revealing Monster Hunter Online is a China freaking exclusive, of all things. However, we're still hoping for a Western release, not just because someone from Crytek initially let it slip, although they promptly corrected the alleged mistake, but also because of the benchmark tool for the game that was released in English. I mean, if it's a China exclusive, why bother releasing it in English too? So, hey, we're hoping. Well, that was a lot. That's a lot of games. But this could mean great things for 2015, especially after a year that was a little bit dull in regards to the quality of MMO games, free to play or not. So guys, here's to hoping that half of these games actually release during the year, or at least enter some kind of beta. Cross your fingers, and if the quality is there, please watch your wallets. You'll be buying hats and alternate skins without even noticing it at all. But all in all, remember to have fun playing games.
Still not sick and tired of all the MOBAs yet? Good for you, because the developers of Heroes of New Earth has just announced another one, Strike. This is another free-to-play MOBA, and the studio expects the two games to compete between